Hi, welcome. It's time for a Woman for Women video in this new series that I've started. Um, Thank you for joining in. My name is Susan Maud Buchser-Lochocki, and I am going to continue to talk about, in this case, pregnancy and birth, and go into my second birth. And in my previous video, you can hear about my first birth, and then eventually we'll move forward. And I hope to maybe get some information on orgasmic birth for you, but for right now, I still have not had time to do anything about that. The one thing that I need to mention, because I saw something somewhat disturbing recently at a place where I like to go swimming and use the jacuzzi and other things. A couple of years ago, I was actually at a different place, and I had noticed men using the jets from the jacuzzi or the jets to have an orgasm in a public pool. And I thought that was really gross. And I made a big story about it, about how gross it is. Then in between, there was another incident where I didn't make a big message about it, but I'm going to right now. And that was here in Morgantown, there's a pool where they have a jacuzzi, and I used it once after like a sporting team had been there, and the water smelled of sperm and of poo, and it was really, 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 really gross. What I will say is because it was had so much sperm, I think if you wanted to get pregnant, I would go there and spend time in it, because I'm pretty sure you could get pregnant very easily from whatever was in that water. Just to let you know. So I know that they say that you can't get pregnant from these jacuzzi things, but I think in certain circumstances you can. So don't always, again, believe what you want, because truthfully, doctors, they want you to pay for the sperm if you're not going to use a real donor, like a husband or something. So they don't want you to get your sperm for free. But in certain circumstances, ladies, there are these places where you can get some free sperm and probably get pregnant. So on the other hand, if you're a woman who's newly married or maybe going to be making babies and you don't want to be pregnant, be careful where you go swimming. So there are all these variations. But even more recently, I saw women using the jets for orgasm. So, I will say, so when women orgasm, we don't produce enough liquid that it leaves our body. It stays in our body, more or less. It's not like a male ejaculation that could have repercussions by making somebody pregnant. So women orgasming doesn't make somebody else pregnant, but it's not okay to do in public, regardless of how you are or whatever. I mean, there might be occasionally an orgasm that happens in public that is accidental, and it happens. And of course, if you're in labor on the street of New York and you can't get to the hospital and you're giving birth right there, if you want to have an orgasm, I'm going to say have an orgasm, okay? But to specifically go about using public swimming facilities for these sort of pleasurable moments, I don't know if that's really normal. Okay, so I'm just putting that out there. maybe some of these spas and jacuzzis and things, maybe there needs to be like a separate one that is just for orgasming. Maybe that needs to be made if it's such a important thing for people and they can't seem to help themselves from having an orgasm in a public pool. um, maybe we just got to give them a place to do it. I know in Virginia there's apparently lots of motels that have jacuzzis in every room. So there you go. You can go have your orgasm in a jacuzzi if you want. But it's not necessary in a public space. When you're doing it in public, that's called an orgy. And there are places also to go and have an orgy. So please go there and have an orgy. But yeah, it was a very weird moment that I experienced. So anyway, orgasm, on the other hand, there's absolutely nothing wrong with it, but it is something that should be done in discretion, at home, in a special place, something like that. It shouldn't be in a public swimming pool. I don't know. It just is kind of weird. So, the owners of these public swimming pools, maybe you want to think about, like I said, having a separate place for these exhibitionists who want to have an orgasm with everybody around. So that can also be something. So that's about orgasm. So, but I do recommend still, a minimum 3 times a week. It's good for your mental health and physical health and your vaginal area and everything. And your in German it's Beckenboden. I can't think of the English word. Sorry, I just spent some time in Switzerland, so English is not completely in the forefront of my brain right now. So, yeah. Oh, and I don't really work for the company, but there's the website, the Baby Center. So I do highly recommend you go there and get some information on all about pregnancy and raising babies and different stages that they're in and everything like that. And then as far as giving birth and preparing for that, doulas and midwives are really good. You need somebody, I think especially in the US, it's not so common to have people like fight for you. And so I think it's definitely needed, because I think you get pushed around a lot here, although maybe that's just my imagination, but I didn't give birth in the US, so I don't know. Where I gave birth, it was pretty flexible. There were lots of possibilities. I did have a midwife. I did not have a doula, but my husband at the time, he acted like a doula for me, so that was good. And then the next thing I want to say is that husbands being in the birthing room. So you and your husband need to know each other. So if your husband is one who needs everything perfect and gets squeamish around certain things, he's probably not going to have a good experience in the birthing room. So you want to keep that in mind. However, if your husband is one who's scientific and is interested in gross things, he'll be there. He can be definitely in the birthing room. So it depends on everybody involved. Because as the female, the most important thing is you have to be comfortable giving birth. And if your husband is there and he's not into being there, he's going to make it terrible for you. So it might be best if he is not there. And And then you'll need a doula for sure to fight for your rights and to help you feel better. And then a midwife is the one who really does like the doctoring delivery part. So that's what I would recommend, because there are husbands who, if they see what birth is really like, it's going to change their world. It's going to change the way that they look at you, the way that they feel about you. And I don't know if it's necessary that every husband is in the birthing process. Or they can be like a bystander or something. But, when you're giving birth, your whole body is focused on getting this big thing out of you. And there's a lot of things blocking it, like pee and poo and mucus plugs and liquids and all sorts of blood and guts and really gross stuff. So if he gets squeamish, he's not going to want to be there, is what I'm saying. And because you're going to do that all over the floor. And it's going to smell and it's going to be gross. And yeah, so really talk that one over with your significant other if they really are the right ones to have in the operation, not in the operation, but in the delivery room. And yeah, they also, some men might feel guilty for giving you pain, but pain is part of it's the opening of the cervix, because it's got to go from 0 to 10 centimeters to get the baby out properly. And recently I saw a video by this woman who I've started to like. I think she's a doula. And she showed that if you press really hard to deliver, you really just press, which I had no choice. That's what my body wanted to do. You will get these tears in your, I think it's called an episiotomy. That's when they do it themselves, but then there's the natural one. But if you can hold yourself back and do short breaths like that, the risk of ripping your whatever part is where the baby's coming out of, between the vaginal area and your anus, that won't tear, apparently, if you press lightly. And you'll hear about it in this birth, I'll tell you, had a different experience where I just felt like pushing and it just happened. I don't really think I could have done these little short breaths that she talks about, but it is probably the best way. The last thing I want to say, before I really get into my story, is that all my life, when I was a kid growing up, they always said the first time you have sex, it hurts. And I mean, for me, the first time I had sex, it definitely hurt, because I wasn't supposed to be having sex at the time when I was, because I was raped. And I was 9 years old. So yes, it hurt. So I don't really consider that the first time, because it was a rape and everything. But after talking to people, I actually don't think that it hurts for women the first time you have sex. I think that's a lie created by, I don't know, or a misunderstanding or misinformation. And just like the misinformation about the hymen being there and how the hymen can get damaged if you have sex, and so the hymen is not at all what we think it is. The hymen is a flexible tissue And it has nothing to do really with proving. You cannot prove if you've had sex or not with the hymen. What doctors have misinterpreted for decades to centuries to millennium is the fact that there are these people who are intersex. And intersex people have different genitals than a perfect male or a perfect female genital form. I mean, whatever perfect is. But they're somewhere in between. And so these intersex people might only have half of their vaginal area open, and they might only have a short vaginal area, and there are just various things that could be happening with the vagina. And therefore, there might be extra skin. But not every female is born with that. And even, I would say that these are not like the pure female, that they're on that scale of variation towards male. And the body was trying to figure out, should I block it off or should I not? And so it leaves a gap. And for these people, for intersex people, then intercourse could hurt. Vaginal intercourse could hurt. So I will say that for certain females, most likely females that are intersex, vaginal intercourse could hurt all the time, or it could hurt the first time, or something like that. But the real truth is that for a fully intact female, there is no hymen. There's no way of proving or disproving whether a female has had sex or not without asking. So if you want to know if a female has had sex, whether it's a rape or sex or lovemaking or whatever the case may be, is to ask. That's the best way. Then the next best thing that I can say is that what did I want to say? Well, yeah, let me see. Oh, yeah, pain. So I think that that line, the first time hurts, is actually more from giving birth. I definitely think the first time really hurts a lot, and it's a lot longer than all your other births might ever be. Although there are, of course, exceptions. It's hard to say always and never, so it's best to say, for the most part, when you give birth the first time, it will probably be the most painful birth you'll have. After that, it'll get shorter and easier because your body now knows what it's doing. It's tested it out. It's warmed up all the engines and the muscles, and it's ready to go. So once that first time is over, then it should go easier. Of course, the circumstances leading up to it, the time of year, and the events around it could affect a birth. But in general, it should be easier after the first time. And it should be not as painful. And this is where I'll end, I'll go into my birth story of my daughter, which, again, I woke up at like 4 a.m. to my water breaking. And I had already determined that this time I wasn't going to go in early because I didn't want to really get an epidural. I wanted to go natural childbirth as much as possible. So I was really trying to avoid the usual way. And excuse me, life was cooperating with that. So that was good. So I woke up and I alerted my husband, and we were more or less prepared, although she was coming 2 days early than her due date, which I was fine with that. I was like, okay, early, so this is good. But her sign wasn't ready. So in Switzerland, when you give birth to a baby, you put a sign up outside the house with the name and the birth date for everyone to see. And so I had to get busy. I had to finish painting the sign. So I was working on that and working on that. And my concentration level, I think after a few hours, wasn't so high anymore. And my husband noticed that, and he said, okay, I think it's time we go in. I had been also, calculating my labor pains to see how far apart they were, and we were already past like the stage where I should have gone in, but didn't. But I was really, I finished the sign. I think I finished it completely, and but I don't really remember 100%. And then the pain got too great, and I said, okay, let's go. So then we got into the car and drove off and arrived and got into the room, and they checked me, and they were like, oh, you're like almost there, ready to go. And I was like, well, it's getting kind of painful. Is there something you can do? And they're like, no, you're too late. There's nothing we can do. By the time it takes effect, you're probably going to be done. So anyways, so I said, okay. So let me just go through it then. And they said, we can give you a tea. So they gave me a tea to drink. I think it was chamomile tea to just settle my nerves a bit. And I got comfortable. I did get on the bed again, which again, I think it's best if you're not. I think dancing around is really the best way to do it. Using gravity, it'll be much quicker than all the other possibilities. But I was sitting up this time. I wasn't lying down. And I think that helped. So what was like a 12-hour process the first time, this time was just a little over 4 hours, and she was out. So I was up on the bed, and the first time I had that epidural, which was a total epidural. Apparently there's a walking epidural that you can also get that really helps, apparently. I talked to somebody recently who said that. So there are different types of epidurals, but in this case, I didn't have one. I only had a little tea, and I got up sometimes, but then I was sitting there, and then bingo, the feeling to push was there, which I never felt the first time around. So I had this urge, and the little bar was hanging down from the bed. There's like this little grabbing mechanism to get up out of bed, I guess. And so I grabbed that, and I screamed like Tarzan, ah, but more deep, ah, and and I felt it. I felt like pushing. So it was really amazing. So I pushed that one time, which got her down into place. And then suddenly, right after that, I felt again this need to push. And I made that noise again. And I pushed. And then her head was out. And then the urge to push again happened right after that. So 3 quick pushes. And then her whole body came out. And then shortly thereafter came the placenta. Everything was out. Everything was good. And it was great, really great. So, yeah, I don't know if I could have done the, it just suddenly was happening, and it wasn't. I don't think I had that much control over it, and it felt really good, very relieving as things were happening. So, it was a wonderful experience. It was painful, but it was also a pain you can survive. And 3 pushes, and then she was out. And it was amazing. Amazing. I mean, it was a great pregnancy. Uh, yeah, I again talked and sang to her and danced around a lot. Sadly, I mean, I haven't told the story of what happened to my son, but he died the next day after being born. So I was depressed at the very beginning of the pregnancy, I will say. And I don't know, about halfway through, I finally was in a better place where I wasn't so sad anymore. And I could really then anticipate, the coming of the new baby of my daughter, and we could finally really start bonding. I guess it was probably around the time when I could feel her moving around in me, and then we started our relationship then, and then she was born, and they put her on top of me, and I welcomed her into the world, and it was a wonderful, wonderful experience. And the fact that it went so quick and so easy after the first one, I was thrilled. So the whole experience was great for mother and baby. And, she was again perfect. All fingers and toes were there. So, that's half the battle when everything worked out. And I think she had a little jaundice, but after a little bit of time under the lights, I think she was fine. And we had a week at the hospital where they prepared me for breastfeeding and baby care and all this. So everything that was supposed to happen with the first pregnancy did happen with the second one. And she's alive today and doing very good herself. So everything was wonderful from start to finish. And yeah, I cannot say more. So yeah, I remember her birth with with fond eyes, fond memories, and our time as a small baby together was miraculous and beautiful. And the first 3 months were really difficult, of course, because you're trying to get the rhythm of the baby, and they can't tell you what's going on. So as we learn more and do more studies on babies and communication, more things are going to come out. So life is only getting easier at this point, especially being a new mom. But there's still a lot we don't know. But it's exciting. It's an exciting time to be pregnant and to give birth and to be a mom, especially to a newborn. So, yeah, it was just beautiful. It was beautiful. Yep. So, what else? I don't know. I think that's maybe enough for uh this time around. And next time, I guess I'll talk about what happens if things go right after birth and what happens if things go wrong after birth, so that you can have that experience too. But so those are the two birthing processes that I've had. And yeah, there are others. Like I said, I met a woman who had a walking epidural where she could get up and move about, and she had a great birth experience with that. So there are other ways. But, I don't know if one can have an orgasm being on an epidural. So this would also be a question. If you are planning to have an orgasmic birth, then you might not be able to get an epidural at all. But chamomile tea, it does the trick too. Okay, so that is my story for today. And if you, I guess, come back and see me wherever you're seeing me now, and I'll see you in a month with some more about birthing and pregnancy and things of that nature. Okay. I wish you a good time until then. Bye for now.